Washington, D.C., February 1st, 2026, a federal courthouse. Lawyers representing over 200 victims file an emergency motion. They're asking a judge to shut down a government website immediately because 72 hours ago, the U.S. Department of Justice did something unprecedented. They released 3 million pages of documents, emails, photos, videos, text messages, the private communications of a dead man, a man who, before he died in a jail cell in 2019, had one thing nobody else had: access to presidents, princes, billionaires, scientists, CEOs, and now all of it is public. Every email, every flight log, every party invitation. This is the complete story of the Epstein Files. How a financier built the most powerful network in the world, how he used it to commit crimes for decades, how the government protected him, and how 6 years after his death, we're finally seeing what they tried to hide. Right now, as I'm recording this, governments are collapsing because of these files. In Britain, Peter Mandelson just resigned from the Labour Party. Why? Because emails show he leaked classified UK government information to Epstein in 2009. Market-sensitive tax policy, EU bailout plans, information that could have made Epstein's Wall Street friends millions. Britain's Metropolitan Police opened a criminal investigation yesterday. Former Prince Andrew, now just Andrew Mountbatten Windsor after being stripped of his royal titles, is facing calls to testify before the US Congress. New photos show him on all fours, leaning over an unidentified woman lying on the floor, taken at Epstein's property, date unknown. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer broke his silence Saturday. You can't be victim-centered if you're not prepared to testify. In Norway, Crown Princess Mette-Marit issued a public apology for her friendship with Epstein. Emails show chummy exchanges, dinner invitations. She admitted showing poor judgment. In Slovakia, diplomat Miroslav Lajčák resigned January 31st after emails showed him planning dinners with Epstein and Woody Allen. He was UN General Assembly president at the time. And in America, the fallout is just beginning. Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Steve Bannon, Larry Summers, Josh Harris, Katie Couric, Martha Stewart, Peter Attia, all of them in the files. Some with emails they wish didn't exist, some with explanations that don't quite add up. And victims? They're furious. Because while the Department of Justice was supposed to protect their identities, they didn't. More than 3,000 pages were released with victim names unredacted. Nude photos posted online before being taken down. One victim's lawyer called it the single most egregious violation of victim privacy in one day in United States history. A federal judge will hold a hearing tomorrow on whether to shut the whole thing down. But here's the thing. To understand why this is happening right now, you need to understand how we got here. And that story starts 21 years ago in Palm Beach, Florida. March 2005. A mother walks into the Palm Beach Police Department. She tells them her 14-year-old daughter was molested by a man named Jeffrey Epstein at his mansion after being recruited to give him a massage. The police start investigating. What they find is a pyramid scheme, not for money, for girls. Epstein would pay girls, some as young as 14, to come to his Palm Beach mansion, give him a massage, which would lead to sexual acts. Then he'd ask them to recruit their friends, bring more girls. He'd pay them per recruit. Some girls made thousands of dollars bringing other girls to Epstein. Police identified at least 36 victims. By July 2006, a grand jury indicts Epstein on one felony count: solicitation of prostitution. The Palm Beach police chief is furious. One count for 36 victims. He refers the case to the FBI. They start a federal investigation. By May 2007, federal prosecutors have a draft indictment: 60 criminal counts, conspiracy, sex trafficking of minors, everything. Epstein is facing life in prison. And then something strange happens. For a year, Epstein's lawyers negotiate with the U.S. Attorney's Office in Miami. The U.S. Attorney? Alexander Acosta. Later, he'll become President Trump's labor secretary. But in 2007, he's making a deal. Epstein's lawyers argue the girls are unreliable. They were paid. They can't be trusted. Acosta keeps giving in, email after email, concession after concession. Finally, June 2008. Epstein pleads guilty to 2 state charges: solicitation of prostitution and solicitation from a minor, 18 months in jail. But here's the kicker. He doesn't serve it in prison. He serves it in a private wing of the Palm Beach County Stockade, his own security detail. And 6 days a week, he's allowed to leave for work. 12 hours a day, Epstein goes to an office he'd set up at a foundation he incorporated, then returns to jail at night. This is called work release, normally reserved for nonviolent, low-level offenders near the end of their sentences. Epstein got it from day one. He served 13 months, then walked out in July 2009. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is the secret. The non-prosecution agreement. Buried in the plea deal was a document the victims never saw. The federal government agreed not to prosecute Epstein, or any of his co-conspirators, or any potential co-conspirators. Federal immunity. for crimes involving dozens of underage girls. And the victims, they were never told. One victim, Jane Doe, filed a federal lawsuit in 2009. The Crime Victims' Rights Act says prosecutors have to inform victims about plea deals. They didn't. In 2019, a judge ruled in her favor. But by then, the damage was done. For 9 years, Epstein lived freely. He had to register as a sex offender, report to police every 90 days. Records later showed he didn't always do it, but nobody seemed to care. Instead, Epstein launched a PR campaign. His foundation donated millions to scientific research, cancer studies, global conferences. He positioned himself as a philanthropist. And his social life? It didn't stop. This is what the new files reveal. The emails don't stop in 2008. They continue. 2009, 2010, 2011. Bill Gates, multiple email exchanges, dinner invitations, Epstein offering to help Gates with his foundation. In 2013, draft emails in Epstein's account appear to show him expressing feelings of betrayal toward Gates, mentioning Gates' marital problems, business deals, STD concerns. A Gates spokesperson called them absolutely absurd and completely false. Elon Musk, 2012 email asking Epstein which night would have the wildest party on his island. Musk has said he refused to attend Epstein's island. The emails suggest otherwise. Musk posted on X Friday, "I have never been to any Epstein parties ever." Richard Branson, 2013 email telling Epstein to bring your harem. A Virgin Group spokesperson says it referred to 3 adult women on Epstein's team, and that Branson repeated the term Epstein had used first. Steve Bannon. Text messages showing Bannon and Epstein gossiping about Trump. "Brother is out of gas," Bannon wrote about Trump. "Dude, I just got him to pull the trigger on $400 billion in tariffs on China." Nearly 2 hours of video shows Bannon interviewing Epstein about being a registered sex offender. Lawrence Summers, former Treasury Secretary, former Harvard president. Emails show him and Epstein gossiping about Trump's intelligence. "Your world does not understand how dumb he really is," Epstein told Summers. Summers was listed as executor in an early version of Epstein's will. Katie Couric. 2010 email thanking Epstein for dinner and a rockin' lasagna. Later in 2011, she sarcastically thanked publicist Peggy Siegel for an Epstein invite, writing, "It's brought me a world of trouble." Martha Stewart's assistant asking for Epstein's cell number in 2013. Calendar entry, Martha Stewart St. Croix on December 26th. Josh Harris, billionaire owner of the Washington Commanders, Philadelphia 76ers, and New Jersey Devils. Invited to a breakfast at Epstein's estate in 2014, where Bill Gates would attend. A week later, Epstein asked Harris, "Did you have fun at breakfast?" Harris replied, "Yes, very much. Thank you for inviting me." This is what the files reveal. For nearly a decade after his conviction, Epstein's network didn't shrink. It grew, but in 2018, everything changed. November 2018. The Miami Herald publishes a year-long investigation by reporter Julie K. Brown. And the headline, "How a Future Trump Cabinet Member Gave a Serial Sex Abuser the Deal of a Lifetime." Brown spoke with about 80 women. All said they were sexually abused by Epstein between 2001 and 2006, some as young as 14. The reporting connected dots. Epstein's social circle, his properties, his private island. How could all these powerful people not know? The article reignited public attention. Alexander Acosta, now Trump's labor secretary, faced calls to resign. Questions mounted. Why did he give Epstein such a lenient deal? Who protected him? Federal prosecutors in New York started looking at the case again, and in July 2019, they made their move. July 6, 2019, Epstein's private jet lands at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey. He's flying in from Paris. FBI agents are waiting. He's arrested. Charged in Manhattan federal court with 2 counts, sex trafficking of minors, conspiracy to commit sex trafficking of minors. The charges allege crimes from 2002 to 2005. Dozens of girls, some as young as 14. Prosecutors say they're not bound by the Florida non-prosecution agreement. Different jurisdiction, different office. July 12th. Alexander Acosta resigns as labor secretary. The scandal is too big. Epstein requests bail, offers to post $100 million. House arrest in his Manhattan mansion. Judge Richard Berman denies it. July 18th. Epstein poses a danger to the public and a serious flight risk, the judge rules. Epstein is sent to the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan. A federal jail. He's held without bond, waiting for trial. Then, August 10th, 2019, early morning. Guards find Epstein in his cell, unresponsive. He's pronounced dead. The New York City Medical Examiner rules it suicide by hanging. Epstein was 66 years old. Just 2 days before, he'd updated his will, creating a trust, distributing his wealth to at least 44 people, friends, employees, business associates, his brother's children, including Little St. James Island in the U.S. Virgin Islands, the place everyone called Epstein Island. The case against him? Closed by Judge Berman on August 29th. But prosecutors made a promise. They would continue investigating potential co-conspirators. July 2nd, 2020. Federal prosecutors in New York charged Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's ex-girlfriend, his longtime associate, sex trafficking, conspiracy, perjury. The indictment says she helped recruit and abuse Epstein's victims. Some as young as 14, she's arrested in New Hampshire, hiding at a property she'd purchased in cash. December 30th, 2021. After a month-long trial, a jury convicts Maxwell, guilty on 5 of 6 counts. June 28th, 2022. Sentencing. 20 years in federal prison. Judge Allison Nathan tells her, "The damage you have done is incalculable." Maxwell is now serving her sentence. She's appealing. But with Maxwell convicted and Epstein dead, the focus shifted. Who else was involved? Who knew what Epstein was doing? And why were the files still sealed? For years, victims and journalists fought to unseal court records. In January 2024, a judge makes more documents public. Related to a defamation lawsuit, Virginia Giuffre filed against Maxwell back in 2015. Giuffre was one of Epstein's most prominent accusers. She said she was recruited at 15, trafficked to powerful men, including Prince Andrew. In her posthumous memoir, Giuffre died by suicide in 2025, she wrote that Andrew believed that having sex with me was his birthright. Andrew has always denied the allegations. He paid Giuffre millions in 2022 to settle her civil case, but he's never been criminally charged. The January 2024 document release caused a media frenzy. Conspiracy theories exploded. People believed Epstein ran an international sex trafficking network, serving rich and powerful men. The question became, where are all the files? The FBI had investigated. The DOJ had prosecuted. Millions of pages must exist. Why weren't they public? Enter Congress. November 18th, 2025. The House of Representatives votes on the Epstein Files Transparency Act, 427-1. The Senate passes it unanimously. President Trump signs it the next day. The law requires the Department of Justice to release all Epstein-related files. Deadline, December 19th, 2025. December 19th, 2025. The deadline arrives. The DOJ releases files, but not many. Hundreds of thousands of pages, not millions. Bipartisan outrage. Republicans and Democrats both furious. This isn't compliance. This is a delay. Representative Thomas Massie, a Kentucky Republican who led the push for the law, warns, it's a crime if they don't comply. This law has criminal implications. Representative Ro Khanna, a California Democrat, says the same. But the DOJ doesn't budge until January 30th, 2026. 3 million more pages, 2,000 videos, 180,000 images, released all at once. The DOJ says this is the final batch. Total production, 3.5 million pages. They say they've met their legal obligations. But Congress isn't satisfied. The DOJ admits 6 million pages might qualify under the law. Where are the other 2.5 million? And that's when the chaos begins, February 1st, 2026. Victims' lawyers file the emergency motion, shut down the website, because in the rush to release 3 million pages, the DOJ made catastrophic errors. Victim names unredacted. Nude photos posted online. The DOJ admits 0.1% of pages had victim information exposed. 0.1% doesn't sound like much. Until you do the math, 0.1% of 3 million pages is 3,000 pages. 3,000 pages of victim identifying information. Names, addresses, photos, all public. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche defended it Sunday on CNN. We moved quickly to correct errors. But the damage is done. And the DOJ says something else. No more prosecutions. There's a lot of correspondence, a lot of emails, a lot of photographs, Blanche said. But they don't allow us necessarily to prosecute somebody. Translation, everyone in the files gets to walk away. No charges, no trials, no justice. Representative Robert Garcia, the ranking Democrat on the House Oversight Committee, isn't accepting that. We will not rest until the American people get the truth. He's calling for the full 6 million pages, unredacted to Congress. Representative Massie is considering contempt or impeachment proceedings if the DOJ doesn't comply. And tomorrow, February 5th, a federal judge will decide, should the website stay up or should victims' privacy win? Let me be clear about something. Being mentioned in these files does not mean someone committed a crime. It doesn't even mean they knew about Epstein's crimes. Many of these people cut ties with Epstein before his arrest or after his conviction, but their names are there, and the public wants to know why. Current and former presidents, Donald Trump and Bill Clinton. British royalty, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Crown Princess Mette Marit of Norway. Tech billionaires, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Sergey Brin. Political figures, Steve Bannon, Larry Summers, Peter Mandelson. Sports team owners, Steve Tisch, Josh Harris. Celebrities in media, Katie Couric, Martha Stewart, Woody Allen, Brett Ratner. Doctors and influencers, Peter Attia, Deepak Chopra. Businessmen, Richard Branson, Howard Lutnick, now Trump's Commerce Secretary. Diplomats, Miroslav Lajčák. Some have issued denials. Some have apologized. Some have resigned from positions. Some face criminal investigations. But here's what's important. The files show that Epstein's network was real. It wasn't a conspiracy theory. He did have access to presidents, princes, billionaires, scientists. He used that access for decades, and many people in that network continued relationships with him even after his conviction. So where does this leave us? We have 3.5 million pages, but possibly 2.5 million more exist. Will we ever see them? We have names of powerful people in the files, but will anyone face charges? Deputy Attorney General Blanche says no. Congress says maybe. We have victims demanding privacy, but the files are already public. Can you put the toothpaste back in the tube? We have resignations in Britain and Slovakia. But what about America? Will anyone here face consequences? And most importantly, what was Epstein really doing? The files show he surrounded himself with powerful people, scientists, academics, politicians, businessmen. But why? What was he getting out of it? Where did his money come from? Forbes ran an article in 2019 titled, "Why Sex Offender Jeffrey Epstein is Not a Billionaire." They found scant proof of his financial credentials. His lawyer for 3 Epstein victims said he pursued every possible angle to find Epstein's wealth. Much of it was offshore. The Swiss leaks showed accounts with millions in tax havens. The Paradise Papers showed he used a Bermuda law firm in '97 to create offshore companies. His job was listed as manager of fortune. But whose fortune? That's the question nobody can answer. Here's why this story matters. This isn't about one dead financier. This is about power and who gets held accountable. For decades, Epstein committed crimes, dozens of victims, maybe hundreds, girls as young as 14, and he got away with it because he had connections. In 2008, those connections got him a deal that should never have been made. 13 months in jail with work release, federal immunity for himself and anyone who helped him. The U.S. attorney who made that deal, he became labor secretary. In 2019, Epstein was finally arrested on federal charges, and within 5 weeks, he was dead. Suicide in a federal jail, no trial, no testimony, no names. His accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, was convicted. She's serving 20 years, but she's appealing, and she's not talking. Now, 6 years after his death, we're seeing the files. 3.5 million pages of emails, photos, videos, names of presidents, princes, billionaires. And the Department of Justice says, no more prosecutions. We've seen the evidence. It's not enough. So everyone walks. The question is, do you believe that? Do you believe that 3.5 million pages of evidence don't contain enough to charge anyone? Or do you believe that some people are too powerful to prosecute? Because this is bigger than Epstein. This is about a system that protected him, that gave him access, that allowed him to continue even after conviction. Representative Ro Khanna said it on Meet the Press. You have some of the most wealthy individuals, tech leaders, finance leaders, politicians, all implicated in some way. Wanting to go to Epstein's Island, knowing that Epstein was a pedophile. Can we really believe nobody knew? Epstein was convicted in 2008. Everyone knew he was a registered sex offender, yet the emails continue. Dinner invitations, party requests, business proposals, from 2009 to 2014 and beyond. If you're Bill Gates, do you really not know why you shouldn't be meeting with a convicted sex offender? If you're a crown princess, do you really not understand the optics? If you're a diplomat at the UN, do you really think it's appropriate? Either they didn't know, which raises questions about their judgment, or they did know, which raises questions about their character. And here's the uncomfortable truth. These people govern us. They build our economy. They own the platforms we use. They create the technology that shapes our future. And for years, some of them partied with Jeffrey Epstein. Tomorrow, a federal judge decides if the Epstein Files website stays online. Victims want it shut down until their privacy is protected. The DOJ says they've done their best. Congress wants the remaining 2.5 million pages. The DOJ says they've released everything required by law. Lawyers want prosecutions. The DOJ says the evidence isn't there. And the American people? We're watching, trying to figure out who to trust. In a world where a convicted sex offender had dinner with princes, where emails show businessmen asking for introductions to women, where powerful people stayed friends with a criminal long after his conviction, where the government made a deal that gave immunity to any potential co-conspirators. Who were the co-conspirators? We may never know, because the man who could tell us is dead, and the woman who could tell us isn't talking. And the files, 3.5 million pages of files, apparently aren't enough. So here we are, February 4th, 2026, 6 years after Jeffrey Epstein's death. And we're still asking the same questions. Who knew? Who helped? And will anyone ever face justice? If you want the truth, you need to demand it from your representatives, from the Department of Justice, from the media. Because right now, the only thing we know for certain is this: Jeffrey Epstein is dead. Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison, and everyone else is walking free. Drop a comment below and tell me, do you think the full 6 million pages should be released? Do you think anyone else should be prosecuted? Or do you think this is all a distraction from something bigger? I'm reading every comment. And if you want to stay updated as this story develops, because it's not over, hit that subscribe button. I'll be covering every new release, every resignation, every investigation. This is the biggest document dump in modern American history. And we're just getting started. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.